So I've just given you yet another example of this identity politics that's sweeping the world. People now insisting they should be identified by their race or their gender or their ethnicity, by their tribe, which of course gives us now these tribal wars, your mob, my mob, whatever. And you see that playing out with the Black Lives Matter protests in particular. Our cricket team now taking the knee, our AFL footballers taking the knee, and the English soccer team also taking the knee. Formula One drivers too. So many people bending to this new race politics. What is happening here? Well, Simon Heffer is a leading columnist in Britain, an author, and now Professor of Modern British History at the University of Buckingham. His latest essay is The Threat of Identity Politics, published here in Australia by the Centre for Independent Studies. Simon Heffer, I'm very pleased you could join us. What is driving this identity politics?
Well, good evening, and thank you for asking me on your programme. In my country, in England, and I think certainly in America and quite possibly in Australia, I think it's driven by politicians who wish to cause mischief. And the lady you've just been talking about, your own politician who's been talking about the so-called genocide against Aborigines, seems to be a prime example of that. There's nothing in the Western world now that will get a politician more credit more quickly than by claiming their own virtue, that they're not racist, and by accusing others of racism. It's a very quick way to get headlines, and it's a very quick way to make yourself look good, because no decent, reasonable person wants to be called a racist, and no decent, reasonable person wishes to see anybody else practice racism. So if you're a politician and you want to get brownie points very quickly, it's a very effective way of doing it. I think also there are aspects of the Black Lives Matter movement which began in an entirely legitimate way to protest about undeniable violence by police in America against black people on the grounds that those people were black. There's no doubt about that. But it's morphed now into an organization of anti-capitalists and anarchists. And certainly in Britain, when a lot of left-wing politicians here jumped on the bandwagon caused by the murder of George Floyd in America in May last year, we noticed that the Black Lives Matter movement here was largely led by white people. Nothing wrong with white people standing up for the interests of black people, but these were white people who had a long history in the anarchist movement and in the anti-capitalist movement. And these are people who have used the abominable killing of George Floyd to make arguments about anarchy and about anti-capitalism.
Now, you know, what I find surprising, Simon Heffer, is that most people I know see straight through this. They don't dare speak up publicly. They know it's a fraud. They know they're being had, and yet they give in. It's like they're assuming a race guilt, or they're simply scared. And I actually find, and it's not just Black Lives Matter, it's also the gender politics, which is also quite savagely played, the gender politics and all that kind of stuff. I find this identity politics, whatever the cause is, quite threatening. Why do you?
Well, it is threatening because it's so divisive. I mean, you know, throughout my lifetime in Britain, we've sought to lower barriers, we've sought to eliminate division, we've sought to treat everybody the same, irrespective of their race, their colour, their gender, their sexual orientation. I mean, I'm quite proud of British society. I think we try to give equality of opportunity, and we try to allow people to advance on their merits, irrespective of anything else. And that's how it should be. And unfortunately, there are too many people out there who are afraid when gesture politics comes into the equation to do something different. I feel very sorry for young sports people who have been, I think, coerced to take the knee. Many of them have black teammates, and they want, quite rightly, to show solidarity and sympathy for say, black footballers who in this country are still subject to quite horrible racial abuse at soccer matches. But there are ways of doing that that don't involve just getting involved in gesture politics. The best way to deal with people who have vicious views about race is to engage in argument with them and to humiliate them that way. And we've had reports in the papers in this country, I think it's also true around the world, not just of white people, but of black people who say, this gesture politics is getting us nowhere. We have to confront these issues through language, through debate, not through gestures. But if you're a young person in a sports team and you see 7 or 8 other members of your team engaging in this gesture, you've got to be enormously courageous and articulate and mature to come out and say, actually, I don't want to do it this way. I entirely agree with you. I entirely agree about the wickedness of racism, but I want to express my views on it in a different way and in a more articulate way that engages in debate with other people.
Oh, absolutely well said. I think that's right. There's a lack of courage here, and I also think this is a trend of the stupid and the young, because it's much easier to win an argument by saying, "But I'm black," or "I'm gay," or "I'm transgender," or whatever it is, than actually refute with argument one-on-one. And this is why I think it's also taking off. Simon Heffer, great essay. I urge people to read it. We'll put that on my blog, I think. I'll do a link. So thank you very much to you for talking to us.